An ape identified with a wolf, and this sparked our first cultural revolution, which then created our original ape-wolf human tribe. This is a culture of origin that continues to display itself down to this very day and appears as a core plot structure in the stories we tell about ourselves. Welcome to the fifth in my series of I-Wolf videos. With these initial background videos, I'm working towards introducing a literary theory called the carnivoresque. So, to keep following the trail to the meat, remember to subscribe and to hit that notification bell with your virtual spear if you want to be part of the pack and to know when the next video in this series is howling away from hilltops into the night landscape of this murky algorithmic internet. In my last video, I looked into the relationship between language, literature, and hunting. Furthermore, I suggested that a cultural identification with wolves could have led to a social revolution resulting in the development of symbolic thought and language. This video asks the question, why study literature? I've often been described as a dog with a bone, so let me begin this video with a quote from the 16th century French humanist Rabelais. And have you ever seen a dog find a marrow bone? In Book 2 of the Republic, mind you, Plato says the dog is the most philosophical beast in the world. If you have, you saw with what devotion he guards it, with what passion he holds it, with what care and judiciousness he takes the first bite, with what love he cracks it open, and with what care he sucks it dry. What impels him? What does he expect from such zeal? What benefit does he expect? Just a bit of marrow, that's all. Just like the dog, you ought to be running with your educated nose to the winds, sniffing out and appreciating such magnificent volumes. You should be light on your feet, swift in the chase, bold in the hunt. Then, by reading hard and constant reflection, you ought to crack the bone and suck the nourishing marrow. In literature, we are both hunter and hunted. In literature, collectively, we leave behind the tracks of who we are, and we follow these tracks in the hope of hunting down ourselves. While stories may come with us into the future, they are imprints from the past. They are the tracks of ourselves upon snow-white pages. The word story is taken from the word history, and the term history is derived from the Greek word histos, meaning web or tissue. To study the threads of literature is to hunt the flesh of the past, and this pursuit can be seen as a form of self-hunting. In a similar way, the Spanish philosopher Ortega y Gasset sees philosophical thought in general as a form of hunting. With maximum frequency, when a philosopher wanted to name the attitude in which he operated when musing, he compared himself with the hunter. Theorists, Plato says over and over again. St. Thomas Aquinas repeats, venatores. Venatores in Latin was the word for hunters, and venator was one who hunted animals in an amphitheater. Today, upon the theater screen of Star Wars, a venator is a class of Empire starship. For Ortega y Gasset, the hunter is the alert man in the absolute outside of the countryside. The philosopher is the alert man in the inside of ideas. Perhaps the literary theorist can be seen as the alert man inside the landscape of literary texts, where the collective works of literature become a vast landscape of words where language connects the reader to the past, present, and future. It is a realm beyond any one epoch. Further to Ortega y Gasset's view of philosophy as a hunting activity, if one adds the fact that, despite a large number of human vegetarians, according to Peter Steinhardt in his book The Company of Wolves, man is the world's preeminent predator, killing more kinds of creatures, in more kinds of ways, and for more kinds of reasons than any other species. Given this is the case, one could see philosophy and the study of literature, in fact all human activities, as carnivore activities. And if in the study of literature we are both the hunted and the hunter, this would make the study of literature a cannibalistic ritual, a carnival where we symbolically devour our own human flesh. It was literature that first stimulated the young Carl Gustav Jung to eventually postulate the existence of a collective unconscious. Unlike the personal individual consciousness, which differs between individuals, the collective unconscious is a second psychic system of a collective, universal, and impersonal nature, which is identical in all individuals. The collective unconscious does not develop individually, but is inherited. It consists of pre-existent forms, the archetypes, which can only become conscious secondarily and which give definite form to certain psychic contents. According to Joseph Campbell, the young Jung read ravenously, and he was fascinated by the fact that the Swiss folk tales he heard as a child were similar to the stories he read in a book on spiritualistic phenomena. Jung noticed that stories from all over the world and from many different cultural traditions had certain similarities. Eventually, Jung developed the theory of the collective unconscious and the idea of the cultural archetype, where innate patterns in the psyche explain the omnipresence of basic symbols and the recurrent existence of prototypical images. The existence of archetypes evokes the possibility the man of the past is alive in us today, and as Jung points out when speaking about the rise of Nazi Germany, these archetypes can also be powerful forces. This is especially the case when activated, and as a result, those explosive and dangerous forces hidden in the archetype come into action, frequently with unpredictable consequence. In the recent U.S. election, was an individual with the name Trump elected? Or was the election a cannibalistic act of desperation trying to protect a PAC's image of an Omega den site deeply rooted in a past tribal culture? And did the collective American unconscious elect a WAG archetype to become a replacement alpha? When a shot rang out, did the life-threatened WAG raise its defiant phallic tail as a clenched fist high in the air, and in that archetypal moment, reach into a long-forgotten collective past, and in doing so, win the election? Did the word Trump, which means a winning wild card, ring like a Pavlovian bell in the subconscious louder than any proposed government policy and its good or bad logical consequence? Just what is the MAGA dream? Is it simply a reaction to an Osama bin Laden nightmare that knocked down the double raised tails of a capitalist alpha and omega symbol that resonated with our ape-wolf culture of origin? Jung suggested that the main source of proof of the collective unconscious is dreams, but he also proposed the active imagination as a source, and he encouraged patients to contemplate a fragment of fantasy that seemed significant to him. and to elaborate the fantasy by observing the further fantasy material that adds itself to the fragment in a natural manner. This focusing upon a fantasy and then following the fragments that accrete to it readily is also a model of the writing process. If a collective unconscious does exist, evidence should be displayed in literature in some way. Literature should be like an archaeological site where we can search for the fragmented evidence of our origin. Furthermore, if the past is actively alive in the present, it could turn our future into a never-ending cycle of return. The study of story can help us to see who we once were and who we still are and who we are about to become. With this knowledge, we can make choices that can determine our future. A deeper understanding of who we are can make the difference between being creatures with a predetermined destiny or being people who choose and then move towards destination of our own design. Without knowledge, there is no real freedom to choose. A greater understanding of the archetypal structure of who and what we are can help liberate an individual or a group. The Jungian analyst Jean Shinoda Bolen uses the archetypal figure found in Greek myths to write popular self-help books such as Goddesses in Every Woman and Gods in Every Man. She views myth as archaeological sites that reveal cultural history to us. This Jungian author uses stories as sites for research, and according to her, some are like small shards that we piece together and infer from. Others are well preserved and detailed like frescoes once buried in the ashes of Pompeii, but now uncovered. Connected to our genetic memory, Bolen sees the reciprocal nature to these stories that can convey to the present generation something about who we are and what is expected of it. She even goes so far as saying myth and story are part of the psychological legacy that shape us and individually affects our perceptions and behavior. However, the question arises, where does the collective memory reside? If our brain is like a computer, how much is hardwired into the physical machinery by evolution, and how much is programmed into the brain by cultural practice? And is there a hidden archetypal story that acts like an unseen virus in all of the stories we tell? Is there a hidden story of origin that continues to reflect the original identification of an ape with a wolf? The next time you watch a movie or read a book, remember to keep an eye out for a canine reference and then tell me about it in the comments below. Does it happen around the same time the status of a central character is about to change? This pattern might not be in every book and movie, but you might be surprised at how often it does show up. While Bolen focuses primarily on Greek myths, she points out the usefulness of examining modern stories such as the George Lucas film Star Wars. According to Bolen, archetypal stories and figures, whether from contemporary motion pictures or ancient Greek myths, tell us truths about our human family story and the roles we may be playing in it. A deeper understanding of human relationships can be found by studying both modern and ancient stories. Patriarchal power relationships can be understood by studying Zeus, who overthrows his father Cronus, in the same way Luke Skywalker overthrows his father Darth Vader. Bolen and her theories of personalities based upon Greek gods and goddesses can be easily dismissed because she falls into the definition of a pop psychologist. Instead of limiting her analysis of human personality to academic discourse, she has chosen to publish her reflections in the mass market form of the self-help book. Of course, the very act of publishing a book easily understood by the general public decreases her credibility as an academic authority. Today, the psyche holds a similar importance to the position held by the soul only a few generations ago. In a similar way, our modern professional class is the new priesthood of our times. In contrast to this class, those who choose to nail edicts written in the vernacular onto the front door of institutions will quickly be labeled as a heretic of some kind by those who wish to limit debate to the in-camera discussions of academic elites who speak in baffling Latinate terms. Today, the bones of early man often take on the air of sacred archaeological proof. In the same way, the bones of Christ and saints were once revered as holy relics that confirmed authority and power on those who discovered and possessed them. Furthermore, in contradistinction to the preceding, too often pop cultural prophets claim a mystical or quasi-scientific authority as their books become bestsellers that feed a public hungry for connection to intellectual power. The public is increasingly losing faith in science and no longer believes science can provide all the answers. The optimism of modernism is being replaced by the cynicism of postmodernism. The key to producing a best-selling pop science book is to refute standard science at the same time as giving the reader the sense that what they are reading is a metaphysical science superior to the discourse of the professional class. The average reader feels so distant from and unconnected to the intellectual elite of society, the new age magical power of a crystal held in the hand is giving more reassurance to the public than the mumbo-jumbo of nuclear scientists who tell us the fusion reactor next door does not pose an environmental threat to us or the rest of the world. During medieval times, the more distant religion and the priest became from the people, the more the people became vulnerable to charlatans who could make a quick buck by selling bogus religious items to them. The situation with the internet today is not dissimilar to when poorly translated vernacular versions of the Bible were published soon after the invention of the printing press. Some of these early vernacular Bibles were clearly spurious in their translations, and when one edition had Adam putting on breeches after he discovered sin, this novel retelling of the old story was used by the religious elite to prove the horrendous peril of publishing a Bible outside of their control. However, a painting of Adam depicted in Eden wearing a fig leaf was not seen as ludicrous by the same elite, and attempts by the religious elite to control publication of the Bible did not stop the Reformation. Today, not everyone can afford to go to exotic locations to dig for bones, but stories of all kinds are everywhere, and suggesting that the stories we tell each other may be the most valuable archaeological site we have to understand the cultural evolution of mankind threatens certain modern monopolies of knowledge, given it is a site open for exploration by everyone who can read. Jordan Peterson is an example of a well-known academic informed by Carl Jung, who has looked at the patterns within myths and story, trying to incorporate their past wisdom with modern scientific insights. We both see the study of literature as incredibly important and of great value to society. Where he and I may part in our exploration is that his conclusions seem to be taking him in the direction of God, while my literary observations have taken me in the direction of dog. I have found that when a canine or subtle canine reference shows up in a story, it is often a sign that the status of the central character is about to change. If this is a widespread, unconscious pattern in the stories we tell about ourselves, why would this be? How connected is the wolf to our carnivore culture of origin? Is there a hidden program moving from generation to generation in the stories we tell? Why does Jordan Peterson only eat meat? Has his messianic exploration into myth and story connected his unconscious to a carnivoresque culture of origin that is lurking as a hidden wolf in the stories we tell about ourselves? Humorous speculation aside, I hope I have illustrated the profound significance of delving into literary texts. Literature is an essential tool in understanding ourselves and our collective human experience. From Greek myths to modern films, these stories serve as both mirrors and maps, reflecting our cultural history while guiding us towards greater self-awareness. By immersing ourselves in the rich tapestry of literature, we not only connect with timeless archetypes and universal themes, but also gain the wisdom to shape our present and future with informed choices. Ultimately, literature is the continuing journey where we hunt down an understanding that leads to the nourishing marrow of the human condition. It is a path that can take us all the way back to our very human beginnings, when an ape leaped into the creative world of metaphor with the totemic thought, I, wolf. In my next I, wolf video, Tarzan and Superman, I will look at two stories that in the 1930s managed to package the new concept of evolution into a pop culture form, illustrating the power of story to change belief and to educate society. So if you want to be part of the pack, hunting down our story of origin, remember to like this video, subscribe, make a comment below, and hit that virtual bell with your metaphoric cursor spear as we keep tracking and hunting for the signs that are hidden in the stories we tell about ourselves.